is where these winding roads have led. I can see a day of gold ahead. It can't be done, impossible, they've said, but I'll get there. I'll get there. I will rise up. I will not fall. I will stand up.
Our vision for HCEF is so big. We're bringing all 10 of our programs together and creating a continuum of service model that if a student comes to us in preschool or elementary school, they are given opportunity to progress with us through these continuous programming opportunities. In the last 2 years, we've expanded our service model. We'll end this year at knocking the door on supporting about 1,000 students. If our students don't realize or understand the correlation between good grades, comprehending what you're learning, and how that applies in the workforce, then we haven't done our jobs. We don't want them to have a job. We want them to have a career.
These children are our future leaders, future presidents, future CEOs.
HCEF is headed in the right direction. 25 years proves that. We gotta keep growing along with solutions that'll help young people be the best that they can be.
AJ has had a vision when she came on to the organization a little more than 2 years ago to create Winnie's Village. We're starting to fulfill that vision of having a fleet. Children just need an opportunity, a door opened for them. We're providing additional support, resources, financial support to help children through a time of need, whether that be 1 year or their entire educational career.
I knew I had to do good in school because I knew I had to get in college, so yeah, good grades was a must. I'm pretty sure everyone knows how expensive books and school supplies are, and not just even the scholarship, they help like on another level, so like they'll make sure I'm okay, they'll check in with me. It's just an awesome organization. I'm currently going into my 3rd year actually at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm majoring in social work. I plan to do my master's in it. And I work at Panera, and I also work as a program assistant at an educational outreach center.
I always knew I wanted to go to college. I learned about HCEF through one of my teachers in high school. They told me about the Hope Through Learning Award. They ended up renewing the scholarship the next year. Been staying in contact with them ever since. Being recognized for your struggles and like seeing other kids going through the same thing as you really made me feel seen, and it gave me more hope for my future. I go to Pitt. I'm in my 2nd year. I'm actually graduating a year early too.
We have to focus on ensuring that our students who have been identified as experiencing homelessness know that this is a temporary situation. It is not your identity. You have your whole life in front of you, and because of that, you can do whatever you want to do.
There's hope to get through it. There's always people around you that can support you. I feel like just taking the steps to achieving my goals is important.
Everything happens for a reason. There's always going to be like that light at the end of the tunnel, and I know it could be challenging, but like you are there for a reason.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brianna Beach, and I am a 2nd-year recipient of the Hope Through Learning Award, a scholarship from the Homeless Children's Education Fund, and a member of the Collegiate Advocacy Committee. I was first introduced to HCEF during my senior year of high school by my school counselor. I shared my housing insecurities with her, and she encouraged me to tell HCEF my story. Now I stand before you to share who I am and remind you to consider the struggles homeless youth face when creating policies that can either help or harm us. My experience with homelessness began in 9th grade. My mother struggled with her mental health, and the only way she knew how to cope was with drugs. Because of her substance abuse, she struggled to pay rent and cover our basic needs, which eventually led us to being evicted from our apartment with nowhere else to go. To get by, my mother and I lived in a one-bedroom motel. She had the bed, and I slept on the floor. This was our reality for about 2 months while we waited for space in a family shelter. During this time, I felt very alone, since my mother could not support me. I had no choice but to take care of myself, and when her addiction was more important than my well-being, I had to step up and be the parent I lacked. Despite everything, school became my safe space. I look forward to going there because it allowed me to escape the burdens I carried. No one knew I was homeless, and I felt normal again. But as my situation began to affect my mental health and grades, I opened up to a teacher I trusted. She connected me with our school counselors, and for the first time, I did not have to carry this weight alone. Looking back, I realized how important my support system was. Without that teacher or those counselors, I don't know where I would be. Counselors save lives, but not every student has access to that care. What if I had no safe adult to confide in? What if I had kept everything inside? Many of the resources that help me are only available to a small number of students in Allegheny County. Thousands of others across Pennsylvania face what I did without support, and they deserve better. Too many children are failed by the system. They may drop out, turn to crime to survive, or slip through the cracks. Poverty is powerful, and if we do not address the root causes, nothing will change. Housing is more than just a roof over your head. It is about dignity, safety, and stability. It is about being able to focus on your future instead of constantly worrying about where you will sleep or whether your utilities will be shut off. I ask everyone in this room to continue advocating for young people like me and to keep our stories in mind as you curate bills, attend meetings, and speak with policymakers. Your decisions can either open doors or close them. With your support, we can build systems that do not just respond to crisis, but prevent it. Although my mother struggled with mental illness and addiction, not all homeless people do. There is a harmful stereotype that homeless people are lazy, addicted, or just looking for a handout, and that is simply not true. Many of us are doing everything we can to survive in a system that makes it incredibly hard to move forward. We are students, workers, caregivers, people with goals, dreams, and potential. As I end this speech, I want to challenge the leaders in front of me. Despite uncertainty in our current political climate, there is so much we can do at a local level. Change does not have to be global to make a difference. It can start right here. When local leaders act with compassion and urgency, other people take notice. Local action can inspire broader change. I ask you not to lose hope, and more importantly, not to lose sight of those who are often overlooked. Youth like me, caught in circumstances beyond their control, navigating trauma, poverty, and housing instability with or without support, we deserve a chance to succeed. So as you write bills, shape budgets, and make decisions, please remember us. Fund school-based support services and youth programs, invest in safe, affordable housing, expand access to mental health and addiction treatment, protect tenants from exploitation. These are not just policies, they are our lives. We do not need pity, We need systems that care, leaders who listen, and most of all, action. Thank you.
Brianna Breach, everyone. I think she deserves another round of applause. Brianna is a leader, she is a scholar, she is an advocate, and she is a proud member of our Collegiate Advocacy Committee at Homeless Children's Education Fund. What Brianna and her fellow student advocates are building through that advocacy committee is something powerful and something very necessary. At HCEF, we believe in order to change the systems and build a better system, we must center the voices of those with lived experience, because no one understands the cracks in the system better than someone who survived those cracks. Brianna's lived experience is her expertise. Every person on our Collegiate Advocacy Committee is providing insight and leadership and structure to build this committee into something significant. They share their stories with us. And that type of transparency, that type of commitment to advocacy, that type of leadership deserves not just our applause, ladies and gentlemen, although we need to applaud her bravery this morning. It deserves our investment, correct? It deserves our investment. So I urge you, I invite you, I challenge you to pick up the brochure in front of you right now, flip it to the back, and there is a QR code at the very top. I encourage you to invest in Brianna and Xavier and Jada, who were highlighted in the video prior to Brianna speaking. From $1 to $1,000, it doesn't matter. Every dollar shows that you're committed to this work, and you're committed not only to building the mission of this committee, but compensating the young people that are a part of this committee. We don't ask them to come before anyone or do anything without compensation, because we know that economics, money is freedom. So I encourage you to invest in them. So today is a wonderful day. It is a breakfast, and I know that breakfast that you are eating was amazing, because Roxanne's Catering is amazing. But beyond the breakfast, today is a briefing. Today is a call to action. Every word Brianna just spoke was a call to action. At HCEF, our mission is clear. We are here to ensure that every child, every young person, every family experiencing homelessness has the economic, educational access, the stability, and the opportunities that they deserve. Every year, we support well over 1,100 of the 3,500 students who have been identified in this county who are experiencing homelessness. These are young people that are attending school while living in a shelter, while bouncing from house to house and sofa to sofa, while living in extended stay hotels or living in their caregivers' cars. Every single morning, these young people get up and they do not know where they're going to lay their heads at night, but they still show up. They show up to school, they show up to life, they show up to possibilities. But let me be very, very clear. Resilience, the act of resilience, should never be a prerequisite to access to supports. Right now, the systems that our students are going through are not just fraying, they are failing. Let's talk numbers. 54% of students experiencing homelessness are chronically absent from school. That is more than double the rate of their stably housed peers. 54%. And we all know that school is a discipline that we have to show up for each and every day. National studies show us that when a child experiences one episode of homelessness, that child is 87% more likely to fall into future homelessness because they haven't been able to secure their high school diploma or their GED. And let me dispel any rumor in this room that is thinking, or any idea that you have the mindset that this is an urban issue or this is a zip code based issue. It simply is not. The crisis of youth homelessness crosses all barriers, all neighborhoods, all geographical lines. It is not a zip code problem. It is a state and it is a federal failure. And the federal safety nets, the services meant to support students like Brianna, are shrinking every single day. Pandemic-era supports that made it easier to identify and serve students have expired or been rolled back. The dedicated funding for the Education for Homeless Children and Youth program, it's under attack. It's being threatened to be shrunk into a block grant, stripping it of its purpose, stripping it of its power. Meanwhile, housing vouchers, rental assistance have all dried up, and that has an immediate impact on our families. Last year alone, in our state, in Pennsylvania, there have been 46,714 students who have been identified as experiencing homelessness. That is a whopping 17% increase over the previous year. If we continue to sit back, if we continue to stay silent, if we continue to do nothing, we are all complicit in allowing this crisis to continue to grow. But here's some great news. We have momentum. Since our last policy breakfast in 2023, advocates across the state, a lot of which are in this room right now, rallied together with HCEF to advance a bill called House Bill 472. This bill waives the fees for youth experiencing homelessness to secure driver's licenses and learner's permits. Why is that so critically important? Because it eliminates the barrier of mobility in their lives. It allows our students to seek the employment they choose to seek. It allows them to be educated in the way they want to be educated. More importantly, it allows them to grow in independence. This bill passed the House with bipartisan support, and now it sits in the Senate Transportation Committee. What does that tell us? It tells us when we speak up, when we organize, when we come with compassion and clarity, we get stuff done. But we can't stop here, because the truth is students we serve cannot wait for the next year's budget debates. They can't wait for patchwork policies, and they can't wait for politics to catch up to the urgencies of their lives. So I ask us to take all the information in that we are going to receive this morning and move forward. Let's honor the resilience Brianna showed us this morning. Let's honor the resilience from the students that were highlighted in the film, because their resilience should never be demanded when they're trying to get through the system. Let's move forward together, ladies and gentlemen, with an unwavering commitment to the thousands of students experiencing homelessness in our county and throughout our state. It only takes us to show up for them. In this room, we have several people that show up for our students each and every day. The first group of people I would like to recognize our board. Can the board members of Homeless Children's Education Fund please stand up? We appreciate their leadership, their support, their investment in our organization. I would also like to recognize our founding board member, who is in the room, Miss Veronica Edwards. She is representing the founding board. Thank you for showing up for us 26 years ago, Miss Veronica. We appreciate you. We also want to recognize our amazing sponsors that allowed this convening, this coming together, this call to action to actually take place. Duolingo, Kendra Ross. All right, Kendra Ross, yes. Grossman, Yankee and Ford, Megan Troxel. 100 Acres Manor, Bill Wolf. Partner for Work, Marquise Long, Vibrant Pittsburgh, Sabrina Saunders Mosley, and Sabrina Bogus. Thank them all for allowing us to come together. Another person that we have to thank immensely for supporting our students from day one, before day one of assuming her role as the Allegheny County executive, Sarah has been with us. Sarah Innanorado, I always mess up the last name, so forgive me, has always been there supporting us. Sarah is fighting for innovation in social services, affordable housing, and economic equity. And we are so honored and privileged and glad that we can call her friend. Thank you to the county executive, Sarah Innanorado. Oh my goodness.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for that enthusiastic good morning. It seems like everyone got their coffee, which is great. Thank you all for being here and supporting the Homeless Children's Education Fund. It is a tremendous organization doing incredible work. So thank you again, AJ, for your leadership. You are incredible. Let's give her a round of applause. And I look around and there are many partners in this room and just want to thank you for making this place, Allegheny County, the best that it can possibly be and making sure no one gets left behind in that process. And of course, as county executive, I don't do it alone. We have partners in governing. So we have our Mayor Ed Gainey, who's here today. Thank you, Mayor. Congresswoman Lee, State Senators Devlin Robinson, and I don't know if you have any counterparts here today, but we're glad that you're here, and State Representatives Izzy Smith Wade L., who's here from the center of the state, and Representative Kincaid from right up the road. So thank you all for being here. And of course, my Director of Human Services, Erin Dalton, who does an incredible job in our community. So. Brianna, I also want to thank you for your incredible words and sharing your personal story. This work is extremely important and personal to me as well, because 25 years ago, we discovered that my dad had a substance use disorder, and my mom took my sister and I out of that house when I was about 14 years old, and by the time I graduated high school, I lived in 10 different places. So I know what it's like to carry the shameful burden of housing instability and not feeling like I had anywhere to go or anyone to talk to who could understand my pain. And when I hear these young people like Brianna, like Jada, who I've met before, who you saw in the video, the amount of courage and poise that they have is absolutely inspiring. So thank you for sharing your story and for making a change. It is personally meaningful to me. And we know right here in Allegheny County, we have more than 3,400 students with a name, with a story, with an enormous burden, but enormous potential. And these young people deserve what every child deserves: stability, connection, compassion, and our support. This means investing in safe and affordable housing. It means investing in transportation to school and after-school programming. It means investing in things like mental health and substance use treatment. It means having someone who shows up for you every single day to say, I see you, I believe in you, and I'm here for you. And one of my great joys as county executive is getting to talk about the incredible work that our county employees do and the money that flows from the county into the community. So the county is a partner with HCEF and so many of you in this room, and together we build systems that meet families where they are, that center the voices of those who are using our programs. Our Department of Human Services has invested heavily in upstream wraparound supports to serve youth and families facing housing insecurity. And we know we cannot do it alone, and we need all of you who are here. To help keep families stable and thriving, we invest more than $15 million to fund 50+ out-of-school programs, which provide students a safe place to go when school isn't in session, and more than $80 million in childcare subsidies that allow parents of young people to go to work. But when families face a crisis, we make sure we can connect them to help. We have a team of housing specialists in our family centers throughout the county, and a team of specialized resource navigators that schools call on for help connecting these young people and families to the right resources, whether it's rental assistance, mental health support, or help for a grandparent taking care of their grandkids. And this is why the federal, state, and local collaboration is so critical, because Pennsylvania, the entire Commonwealth, receives only $5 million in dedicated funding from the federal government for homeless education. So we have to step up as state leaders, as local leaders, to make sure that we are meeting this moment with urgency and innovation. Because poverty and homelessness, it is not inevitable. They are a result of policy choices, and we have the power to choose differently. In Allegheny County, we are committed to being a place where every single child can thrive. And that means recognizing the unique needs of these students who are experiencing homelessness and designing educational systems that support them. We also need bold ideas. We need to be challenged as your elected officials, and we have to be willing to try things that others have not. And where are those bold ideas going to come from? They're going to come from all of you. So thank you for being here. Your voice matters. Keep showing up. Keep pushing us. Please help us shape policies and programs that can meet the needs of children and families that are being left behind each and every day in our communities. And thank you for being here. Thank you, HCEF. We love you and we appreciate you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we are not only going to serve the children today, but the children of the future. And someone who has been a great partner in that work is our mayor, Ed Gainey.
Good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I want to do two things because I think it's well deserved. Brianna, I couldn't have done what you've done at 21, particularly with the story that you've been through. And I think sometimes we take it for granted because we come and hear these stories all the time, that sometimes we become numb to the meaning of what it means to be able to have childhood scars. And for you to be able to stand up and talk about your childhood scars, there's a lot of people in this room that's still running from their childhood scars. And the one thing I've learned in life is that you can't grow up if you don't face your childhood scars. And I would beg to differ to anybody in here that says that they don't have a childhood scar. I want you to think of what that childhood scar would look like if you was homeless. I want you to think about what that childhood scar would look like if your mom or dad couldn't afford affordable housing. I want you to think about what that childhood scar would look like if you was a victim of domestic violence or seen it in your life. I want you to think about what that childhood scar would look like if you had to deal with unwanted sexual advances as a child and couldn't overcome it. I want you to think about the multiple definitions of what homelessness looked like. And I want you to think about the impact that childhood scars has on everybody in this room. And then I want y'all to give Brianna a round of applause for the confidence that she has. And I know a lot of people think that this work is easy because a lot of us will have this breakfast today and talk about what is a shame. Because what we love to do is talk about issues instead of executing action. And action is the way you resolve problems. If you don't have a problem, you don't have a story, so therefore you don't have a promise of a better tomorrow. The only way you can have a promise of a better tomorrow is if you have a story that you're going through today. And so I would like for everybody to give a round of applause, a standing ovation to A.J. Jefferson for her efforts at making this a reality. Come on, come on. I want to thank my sister in the struggle, Sarah Anna Morato, for those words, those kind words. And my other sister that'll join me on stage next, the first African-American Congresswoman, Summer Lee. And the reason why I want to make sure I get them to a shout out is because it's different when you know people that talk about the struggle compared to that's been in the struggle. And when I'm talking about these two ladies, I'm talking about two that know what it means to fight for a voice that we don't have in the community. They know what it means to fight for a voice of those that can't speak for themselves. And that takes courage and guts in a climate that wants to silence them instead of empowering them, that gives sympathy and empathy instead of giving empowerment tools, as if sympathy and empathy can build a community. The only thing that can build us is the power of empowerment. And so I want to thank them for the work that they put in. You know, this work is essential, it's very important. Today, more than 46,000 young people are homeless. The reason why that's important is because I said 46,000. Let's talk about it from a public safety standpoint first. 46,000 means how many will be going into a life where they grow old but they don't grow up. A life where they get introduced to the criminal field and not a professional field. A life to where they feel they got to do certain things in order to survive. A life that leads to drug addiction or drug selling instead of education and a human healing. 46,000 kids across this state are considered homeless. What will they be in 10 years? What will they be in 10 years? Let's talk about it from a housing standpoint and why affordable housing is so important. If mama's unstable, the kid is unstable. If mama doesn't live a stable life, the kid don't live a stable life. I come from a neighborhood where 80% of the mamas in my community were single moms. I can tell you the story of each one of their children. I can tell you the story of a lack of love that they look for in multiple people dating adults but never men or women. I can tell you about a community in which you had to overcome all type of negative behavior, and most of the moms that even was living there had someone else living there because they was homeless. Let's talk about it from a welcoming standpoint, how I can teach you to be welcoming when I'm injured, when I don't know where my next meal is coming from, where I got kids and you worrying about them in school and I can't even worry about them at home. Let's talk about it from a thriving perspective. If the child is never exposed to a thriving parent, how can they be a thriving adult? Let's talk about that. Let me be the model of that last question. From a mother of 15, I watched my mother struggle, but I also knew what my community looked like and how they stood for one another. See, some people will leave out here today, and there used to be a song. Song used to be called, let's put 5 on it. Some of y'all might know what I'm talking about. I got 5 on it. Oh, yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. How many people will put 5 on it today? See, we put 5 on it for multiple activities. But what could be greater than putting 5 on it for our children? If you walk out of here today without giving, then you just came to have a breakfast and listen to a panel. But if you really want to help this next generation, if you really want and you care about the children and our public safety, if you really want and care about affordable housing, if you really want our children not to get into a negative behavior, if you really want them not just to grow old, but to grow up, put 5 on it and tell AJ, thank you, peace. Let me bring up the first African-American congresswoman in the Commonwealth of PA, the one I believe, call her Summer Lee. Let's go get it.
This is so hot. I'm just gonna bring this down. Every time I have to go after the mayor or anyone really, I am unable to reach the microphone. But good morning. First of all, just thank you so much for being here this early. Thank you for everybody who came and got up earlier than me, which means you beat the traffic, did not get stuck like I did. So I thank you for your patience more than usual. And I thank you because you are here, and if you are here doing just incredible life-saving work, that you are lifting up an issue that is so important but also under-discussed, under-considered, and really going under the radar more than it should. And I say this as somebody who has served at the state and now the federal level. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you for your fight, and I appreciate you for having me here to be able to fight alongside you. We just heard the mayor say, and I believe he said the number was 46,000 young people across the Commonwealth who were experiencing homelessness. And oftentimes when we think about homelessness, the first thing we think about is housing, right? But we know that homelessness is so much more than housing. It is a holistic issue. It's a holistic crisis, and it is a public health crisis. I think about just all the ways in which homelessness impacts children, the ripple effect, as it were, right? The child who is just trying to get through their day, they're trying to get to school, maybe from a different place and different days or different weeks, and they're trying to hang on to some level of stability, right? I think about kids who are trying to do their homework at night, but they're not even sure if they'll have a quiet place to sleep. Kids like cousins that I had, and I remember growing up before I understood the concept of homelessness, or maybe I had a one-dimensional idea of homelessness, that homelessness only meant that you were sleeping outside, not that it was the cousin who bounced from aunt to uncle to aunt to uncle, from school district to school district. I think about those kids bouncing between shelters or couches or motels while trying to show up to school and somehow focus on math, right? Or reading, or how they'll pay for lunch or eat lunch that day. We're talking about students who are forced to carry the weight of big grown-up problems on their small shoulders. And that's why we're here fighting today. I've walked into many schools across our district where teachers are working miracles with very little resources, and where kids are showing up every single day with so much brilliance in them, but so much instability around them. And I'll tell you right now, no kid No kid can reach their full potential if they don't know where they're going to sleep that night or where their next meal is going to come. So no kid should have to carry that trauma into a classroom and still be expected to act like everything is normal. And we know the issue didn't come out of anywhere, right? This is the direct result of underinvestment and policy decisions that consistently leave behind the most vulnerable neighbors and families in our communities. We have spent long enough building policies around people. We really have to get intentional about starting to build policy with people, with impacted people, not just in mind, but in spaces in the room with their lived expertise being considered in very real ways. And that's why I'm here this morning, to listen, obviously, to learn, but to lift up the voices of those who have been doing this work every single day. And I want you to know that in Congress, I am committed to pushing for deeper investments in programs that prevent homelessness before it starts and to protect students if it does happen. And that means fully funding McKinney-Vento, for instance, or fighting for wraparound services and supports like school counselors and trauma-informed care, social workers, and stable transportation for these kids. It means making sure that shelters are safe and inclusive, especially for LGBTQIA youth and students who are overrepresented in these systems. And it means addressing the housing crisis at its root, because you cannot talk about education or safety or stability or health care without talking about housing. But more than anything, it means centering the youth, the students, because these young people, despite everything, are still dreaming. They are still showing up. They still have hope, and they deserve a system that has those same things for them as well. But for a little moment of real talk, we know that all of those things are going to be increasingly difficult in the environment and the conditions that we are living and governing through right now. And I know that we aren't supposed to be partisan all the time. I'm always partisan. I'm allowed to be, unlike other people. I'm always partisan because you know what? These are sometimes partisan issues, and sometimes we have to call out the policy issue that exists. We have to call out the budget priorities and agendas that we are dealing with. And as somebody who just came from Congress last week, where we passed one of the most cruel reconciliation packages that we've seen in recent history, we have to be real about some of these root causes. We have to be real about those people and those things that we are doing to exacerbate, not fix the problem. And I'm telling you, this reconciliation package helps none of the work that you're doing. It advances none of the causes or priorities that you all are fighting for. And I think about just the many ways that this administration, this agenda will hit young people. It's not just schools and housing, cutting opportunity for them if they do make it through all of the turmoil, all of the strife, and they make it to college. Well, we've cut off some of the access that they might have to actually be able to do that. Or thinking about how hard it will be for them to now be fed, or CHIP and Medicaid being cut. Those will impact the very students who we're talking about right now, the very young people who have already lived a lifetime more than they should have already had to deal with. And now we have policymakers who are making it harder. So it's more important now than ever to stay tapped into this fight. Not to be hopeless, but to be more encouraged, to be more tuned in, but really to be more intentional in our lobbying and what we're asking for and how we're holding people accountable, how we're lifting up the stories, who we're bringing with us in this moment, because it is not all said and done. And we can't treat it like it's all said and done. But we do have to treat it like every day we go into this fight, it is guerrilla warfare. And we do have to come with our best, we have to come with our brightest, and we can't get stuck in traffic. So I say that, and I'm asking you all, whether you are elected officials or school leaders or service providers or advocates, that we got to walk shoulder and shoulder right now, that we have to stop managing poverty and we have to start ending poverty. I want us to have and to build a policy agenda that reflects what we all know in our hearts to be true, that every child deserves a safe place to sleep and a fair shot at life, at learning, at existing, at thriving, at not just surviving. So I'll close with this. One of the students I met not too long ago in our district told me that she was tired of people calling her resilient. She said, I just want things to be easier. And that stuck with me, because resilience shouldn't be a requirement to survive childhood. We shouldn't be content with saying, oh, well, you know, kids bounce back. You know, that isn't the type of childhood that we should aspire to in our nation, in our wealthiest, one of the wealthiest nations on earth. Our job is to make sure that these kids don't have to be warriors just to make it through the school day. So thank you so much for being here, for your work. And I know, and I hope that you know, that I have got your back, that I will continue to listen to you, to follow you, to go into the spaces that I'm obligated to go into and fight like hell for the work that you're doing, for the children that we're fighting for in the halls of Congress and right here at home. So thank you so much, and I have no idea who I would be introducing next.
I'll tell you what, if we do one of these again, I'm going to make sure that I don't go after the politicians anymore. What are you supposed to say after that? Good morning, everyone. My name's Brian. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for the Homeless Children's Education Fund, and I'm going to be hosting a panel discussion between some of our state representatives, state senator, and a person who I know well who is doing this work on the ground, a social worker at Pittsburgh King. We're running a little behind time, so we're going to have a little bit of a truncated panel. I'm going to skip some of my introduction, but the general purpose is we're trying to really connect a lot of the things that we've been hearing from all of the speakers previously to action, to things that we can be doing in the state legislature, ways that the state can support students who are experiencing homelessness and going through all of these challenges that we've been talking about so far. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panels, or our panelists. First, serving Pennsylvania's 37th State Senatorial District in Allegheny County since 2020, Senator Devlin Robinson is a former Marine and small business owner who prioritizes sustainable economic growth for our region and has successfully sponsored a wide variety of legislation ranging from public safety reform to post-secondary scholarship opportunities and more. So thank you for being here, Senator. Next up, we have Representative Lindsay Powell, who has served Pennsylvania's 21st House District since 2023. Representative Powell supports safe and dignified housing for all, helping working families, assisting small businesses, strengthening the local economy, and increasing the number of community assets available to residents. Our last state representative is Representative Ismail Smith-Wade-El, who is... And he traveled all the way from Lancaster today, so very, very grateful for Representative Smith-Wade-El for that. He serves Pennsylvania's 49th House District and strives to create equitable systems for working families and advocates for legislation that promotes kindness, dignity, and care, reflecting shared community values. And last but certainly not least, somebody that I've known a very long time and who has been instrumental in a number of, we couldn't have done a lot of the programs and a lot of the things that we've accomplished at Homeless Children's Education Fund without the support of school social workers around the city. And nobody's done more for us than Mrs. Tanya Ashby, who's the social worker and FACE coordinator at Pittsburgh King. And I can definitely attest that she's committed to changing the trajectory of our students for long-term academic success and mental and emotional wellness. So I'm just going to jump right into the questions. As you know, you guys have done this before, so you know that my job is to ask you very complicated questions that you couldn't answer in an hour and then cut you off after 2 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do. And our first question, which I'll start with you, Senator Robinson, if that's all right, is when you think about the intersection of housing instability and education, what's one moment, either personal or professional, that really reminds you why this work matters?
As I was listening to a lot of the speakers, I remembered back to my own childhood. All of my mother's cousins lived with us at some point, and we all went to the same school. And I never really thought about it. It really never, hit me until now. And it really brought up the importance of community and the importance of, in Brianna's speech, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want people to know about these problems. And it wasn't until finally you confided in somebody that somebody knew where to take you to get those programs and that help. And that was what I experienced growing up with my family. We were kind of the stable household, and they all went to school with us. We were the ones that would get my cousins on the bus, and we were the ones that would get them clothing for school and things like that. And what Mayor Gainey ended up saying about until you face your scars, you're not really going to grow up. And as legislators, we're looking for that, where to invest those types of dollars, because we're looking for a return on investment. So if we have people who are lagging behind for any issue, we're not going to be able to realize the rate of return in forms of tax dollars for future generations. So that's why we want to make sure that these programs are available to everybody.
Thank you so much, AJ Bryan, for the opportunity to talk about this important issue. For me personally, I think of Esther. Esther is my little. I did Big Brothers Big Sisters for years, and while policy and legislation around housing and economic development has been my passion for years, walking through homelessness with Esther was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Esther found herself homeless at 14, and as her overly aggressively involved big sister, I found it impossible going to her school, trying to figure out resources to get her transportation to get to school, to make sure that she had Wi-Fi where she was going. This was also during the pandemic. Wi-Fi where she was, to make sure that she got her assignments in on time. It was one of the hardest experiences as someone who was caring for, loving on a young person, a child who was transient, trying to figure out exactly where she would be able to safely lay her head at night. I'm really happy to say that last year we moved her into her first apartment. She's grown now and calls me, because we're still obviously deeply close, but she's grown now. She's in her new place. But I know how difficult it was to get her there, how difficult it was to find her stable housing, how difficult it was to find her work that was fulfilling, and I want to say specifically dignified housing. It was imperative to me that through her journey, that she was able to find herself in spaces where she could, again, safely lay her head at night, but it was dignified. I think in this work sometimes, especially in crises, we are so quick to make sure that a roof over your head is a roof over your head, and that's not true. We need to make sure, especially for our youngest folks, especially for our young people and students, that when we're talking about housing, when we're talking about preventing and mitigating homelessness, we're talking about making sure that people have a dignified and respectable experience. And seeing that firsthand with Esther, and knowing all of the work, all the other stories, all the other young people that are close to you all in the room, that we need to do better as legislators, as policymakers, to make sure that in these conversations we're centering dignity and respect for everyone that we serve. But I always think about the years that we got her to stable housing, and just the excitement, elatement with the keys in her hand as she moved into her first apartment. So.
Is that busy?
Oh, there we go. All right. Real quick, shout out to these gentlemen making this all work for us. Brian, I think that's a fantastic question. The thing that occurs to me, it's really two things. When I was 9, my dad split. We didn't really hear from him for about 2 to 3 years. But as he and my mother were still married, he was able to rack up about 6 figures worth of debt that she was also responsible for and could not discharge. And you have to understand, my mother was born in 1948 in segregated Washington, D.C. So when she moved to Lancaster to buy the house that I grew up in, that was the first place that ever had her name on it. And so for about 6 months, there was the specter that we might lose that house. And I remember coming down in the morning and seeing my mother kind of as a regular occurrence, crying in the kitchen before she went off to start her day. And we never lost that house. I got to grow up in that house all the way through. But even the specter of that, like even having that in the background was deeply impactful for me. And so thinking about in the school district of Lancaster, by the end of the school year, we identify usually about 1,200 students who meet the Department of Ed designation of homelessness. So I think about that experience that I had times 10, and then we ask those kids to show up to school and learn and take PSSAs and Keystones, and they might have moved 4 or 5 times that year, and those moves might have been from one shelter to another, and that is the way we evaluate those tests that we've asked them to do after waking up in a shelter and dragging themselves to school, is the way that we evaluate whether our schools are succeeding or not, right? Like we're doing something fundamentally wrong, and I guess it leaves me with this impression. Education is the biggest thing in every budget year in both chambers, and I can't help but come away with the idea that if we get our students another $5 billion in education funding, but they don't have a warm place to lay their heads at night and wake up in the morning, it's all going to be a bad joke.
So I'm Tanya Ashby, and from a school perspective, a school social worker perspective, it's always important that when we have students who are homeless and they come to us, we treat them with respect, and we greet them, and we take out the time to know their name and their history. We don't want to be judgmental because we don't know their story until they feel comfortable enough to share that with us. And so we often hear when we do the Pledge of Allegiance, and what I say is, with liberty and justice for some. It should be for all, but it's not. And so what we need to do is make sure that all of our students are treated with dignity and respect. We talk with them about what their needs are, and we meet their needs based on what they tell us. We provide food, and so I just have a quick list of some things that we do. I thought earlier that when homeless families come to us, they're coming to us and they are very uncomfortable because they're leaving something that is not consistent, and they're coming to something that's also not consistent. One of the activities that I do with students is we're sitting in a room like this, and I'll say, I need you to change seats with someone. I'll wait for them to get very comfortable. They'll have their water or their cookies, and I'll say, change seats. And so they don't have a warning. And so I think of that when I think of homeless students. There's no warning. Once the moment we get comfortable and we get set, then here comes a change. And so no one really adjusts well to that, but in a school system, we try to meet their needs based on what they tell us, and also the things that we have, such as clothing, book bags, food, snacks, things that they need. Because when they're coming to us, they sometimes have to leave everything that they own to come to a new setting. And we know as well that's very uncomfortable. So we try to meet those needs so that our students can thrive and do well academically, emotionally, socially, and of course financially. So that's our goal for the school.
Thank you all for that. So we've talked a lot about the challenges that unstably housed students are facing, and something I always return to is the chronic absence rates that AJ mentioned in her initial remarks. So 52% of Pennsylvania students who are experiencing homelessness are chronically absent, or at least in the last year that we have data for. So, if a student isn't in the school building, they can't be getting any of the benefits of school. So that seems like one of the biggest issues for me. But And we can start with you, Mrs. Ashby, this time. What I wanted to hear from y'all on is what do you currently think is the most pressing challenge that students experiencing homelessness are facing, and particularly with an eye to things that you think the state, especially state government, can do about that challenge. So the most pressing challenge, and what you think we can or should be doing about it.
So I believe one of the pressing challenges we have is when students come to us who are homeless, they don't always have the documentation, the birth certificate, the Social Security, the immunization records, all the things that's required for students to be enrolled. So they'll just show up. And so when they show up, we're required, because we don't need to ask questions, they've been through enough trauma and drama, and so we don't ask questions, but we enroll them. But we need to also know how they did academically in the previous years. And so sometimes it becomes a game where we'll put them in one grade, and if they don't do well, we'll put them in the lower grade. Because our goal is for them to feel comfortable and to experience success. And so if they're not experiencing success, then we try to figure out where they need to go so they can gain some academic support and some momentum so that they can pass to the next grade. And I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be more funds. There needs to be more financial funds for our students and our families, because when they come to us, they have such great needs. And those needs are not always met during our school year. We try, as I said before, we try to meet their needs based on clothing. We have in our Pittsburgh King, we have something called our King Closet, which has uniforms. We have all type book bags, notebook, pens and pencil, things that many students come with. But our students who are homeless don't necessarily have that. And so we do, and we don't ask any questions. They can get that the moment they come in. When students go from school to school, many times the school uniform policy changes. You might be required to wear a white shirt with a collar in one building, and then you go to the next building and it's blue, light blue, not dark blue, and you may not have any of that. So we do give space and grace for our students to come to school. If they come in blue jeans and t-shirts, that's okay. You're coming in to learn, we'll give you what you need, but we need you to come in to learn. Many times they do have illnesses where they miss a lot of school days, and we work with them in many ways so they can get their work made up. We'll give them packets to take home, we'll give them special time to work on their assignments, but money is the key. We need people to donate to be able to give money so that our students are met without judgment, and also to make academic and emotional success.
Thank you. Rep. Izzy?
There are teachers in the audience, right? Do we have an educator? Yes, no? Okay, hi, in the back there, you're a teacher? Hey, fantastic. Can you do me a favor? Can you divide 46,000 out of 5 million and tell me how many dollars that is per student? If you all right. Brian's going to do it on his phone. But I do think that probably sorry to put you on the spot like that, ma'am.
You're always asking people to do that. That's specific operation. 108.
$108 per student. And so I think like the question that we have to ask, and I think you're absolutely right, ma'am, is the answer is going to be those resources, and that we can in fact provide them, because the overarching thing, whether it's school clothes, transportation, coming to school and getting a meal, like depending on when they arrive, we've universalized free school lunch, but not universalized free school breakfast. So a lot of kids are missing out on a meal that they need to learn there. But you know, the thing that this makes me think of, Brian, a year ago, I was with my colleagues in Bald Eagle School District in Center County, and we had the superintendent of Forest County schools. And she said that in both of her high schools, in both of the buildings, she has essentially a laundromat in each building, because the kids might not have the opportunity, to wash their clothes in the morning. So making sure that those funds exist and making sure that they are flexible so that each school district can use them to meet the needs, because it's not the same in the school district of Lancaster as it is in Forest County or as it is in Pittsburgh. And just as a last thing, I am actually stunned that given the number of students that are experiencing homelessness and what that means for a family, not that we shouldn't try to improve that number, but that there's a whole 48% of them who do not suffer from chronic absenteeism. And frankly, like the teachers and the administrators and the parents and the young people who are getting themselves to school, you know, like they deserve our every support because they are putting forth an incredible level of effort. I almost didn't make it here today because I woke up too late, so.
I want to be very specific in some of the policy interventions. So myself and several colleagues, including Rep. Smith-Waddell, were able to create the first of its kind, a housing caucus that's bipartisan, hopefully soon to be bicameral, that is very solely and narrowly focused on housing. Implementable policies that we know will be able to impact our housing crisis writ large across the Commonwealth. One of those pieces of policy that I think is really important is ERAP, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. What I think one of the, I don't want to say good, but one of the things that we found in the pandemic that showed us, one, how fragile our systems were, was that we were able to create, stand up, implement, and run programs really quickly that were able to help the most vulnerable amongst us. For those who aren't familiar, ERAP was a program that allowed for folks who had lost their jobs because of COVID or were in danger of losing their jobs because of COVID to have cash money in their accounts to pay for their rent. We know that programs like this that are giving people cash in their hands to give them the agency to pay their rent, to take care of their housing situations, immediately equates to good outcomes. People were able to stay in their homes. Outside of a pandemic, we should be implementing programs like this to ensure that we don't get to the space where we're seeing families and young people and individuals homeless. These are the types of solid, clear, and practice policy outcomes that we should be fighting for. Our housing caucus has been growing and expanding because there is a clear need, whether you're in Lancaster, whether you're in Pittsburgh, whether you're in Philly, there is a clear need that we do not have adequate housing for all of us, and dignified housing, as we've been saying. Within this work, we've identified several pieces of policy and legislation that would start to address this issue, but very clearly, ERAP, bringing ERAP back makes a lot of clear sense. We've done it before, we can do it again. We should be able to expand it to ensure that vulnerable families who aren't able to make sure that they're able to pay their rent, that we're able to do that, stabilize them, and wrap our arms around them with all the resources and supports that various organizations in this room provide, that we're able to do that clearly and quickly to make sure that people don't face the precipice of homelessness.
In terms of students absent from school, on top of lacking in the curriculum, they're also lacking in a lot of other services that the school provides, like nutritional services, mental health services, medical services. I think that is one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with. You know, in terms of what the state can do, we have a greater need for an investment in mental health services so that the parents of these students can take care of those primary issues that are causing the homelessness. And there's a great program of the Job Corps that Allegheny County has implemented. And we can continue to invest in programs like that to make sure that we can get these people in some sort of stable environment and a stable job to send the kids to school.
And so you guys already started answering one of my next questions, so I'm going to sort of blend a couple. So you were talking a bit about, you know, some of the specific policies and investments that you guys would like to see to support some of these students. So I wanted to ask you guys, what what opportunities do you really see for strong bipartisan support? Because we have a divided legislature, we know that we're going to need people on both sides of the aisle supporting this issue, and I think that there's a lot of indication that there is support for on both sides of the aisle. I mean, House Bill 472, the driver's license fee waiver for homeless youth, passed with really substantial bipartisan support in the House, and we're hoping to see it move the same way in the Senate. So yeah, what opportunities do you guys see for bipartisan policies or pieces of legislation moving forward in this particular session? And Rep. Izzy, if we can start with you.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. I think the dynamic is such that we're gonna, of course, see that increase that we need in school funding, or at least something pretty close to it. But when we drill down, I'm thinking about, for me, because Representative Powell is absolutely right. Like, at the root of this, there's not enough good, dignified, affordable housing for people. So accelerating, for example, and I hope that we'll do this in this year's budget, accelerating the increase, gonna get a little wonky here, of the amount of realty transfer tax funds that go to the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency to allow for more rental supports, more construction of affordable housing, and more homeownership support programs is going to be a big win. And I think that we should really endeavor to do that as fast as possible, because one, it's like necessary and moral, obviously, but also because PHFA does a pretty good job of bringing in private investment after public investment. It's not like we invest 10 million in PHFA and we get 10 million worth of housing. They're working at about a 5-to-1 ratio on investment. So I think that's the specific policy that we haven't mentioned yet that I'd want to highlight.
Rep. Powell?
A few things. We've created this housing caucus because I believe that there is so much bipartisan support. As we said before, no matter whether you're in rural, urban, suburban, there is a housing issue. It looks a little different in all of our neighborhoods, but there is a housing issue, whether it's not enough housing, it's not enough attainable housing, it's not enough options for home ownership. There is an issue deeply rooted in our Commonwealth. Specifically, one of the pieces of legislation, bipartisan, that we hopefully will be introducing this week with Senator Argel, Senator Saval, and Senator Twardzik, my co-chair, Republican co-chair of the Housing Caucus, will be housing preservation, trying to expand our whole homes program that you may be familiar with, making sure that income-restricted seniors are able to stay in their homes. I think how it relates to this issue in particular, we're seeing so many multi-generational homes. More and more often, we're seeing grandparents taking care of young children. And for seniors, some of our most vulnerable amongst us, it is incredibly difficult to raise enough money to fix that roof or to get that the stairs fixed up so that you're able to get to the second floor. Here in Allegheny County, our whole homes program ran so quickly that even a year later, I am still getting calls to our office saying, when's the program gonna come back? Our wait list is long, and then longer. And so if we're not able to bring this program back and expand it, we might see not just vulnerable seniors, but young people be at risk of losing their homes. Lastly, I'll say too, I'm very, I like to say cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic about the engagement about housing overall. Governor Shapiro has been working across the state to put together a housing plan after listening to stakeholders, many of which are in the room right now, of trying to see how we can do better as a Commonwealth of investing in housing. If you look around the state, Ohio, Maryland, New Jersey, they've all made significant investments in expanding their housing stock, making sure that there are programs like an ERAP in their states, making first-time home buyer programs available to folks. We don't have any of that. We don't have any of that. And if Ohio's beating us, we're doing something wrong, right? And so I'm hopeful with this announcement of this plan and the work that the governor's team and many others in this room have done to put together some starting points that we can really dig in to find actionable, impactful solutions to really address our housing crisis and make sure that the most vulnerable amongst us are able to remain housed and remain safely housed.
No, I agree. Representative Powell, she really took that answer away from me. But one of the biggest issues, we can get people into housing, and then what happens? The roof is going to start leaking. The windows are going to start letting cold air in. I've been dealing with one constituent that her electricity bill is like $300 a month. The electrical unit wouldn't shut off, and it was constantly maxing out. And trying to find those what seems like in terms of a state budget, try to seem like those small issues, but that's her entire income almost for that month. So trying to fix those problems, I think, is paramount.
So we have about 2 minutes left. So closing remarks, we're going to keep them short. What do you guys want to leave everyone who's here with at the end? What do you want people to take away from all of this? What do people need to know, and how can they participate in this process and be engaged? And Mrs. Ashby, we can start with you.
Good, because they have all the experience, and I don't want them to say what I'm going to say. What I'll say is that this is a lot like preaching to the choir. We come to these meetings, we come to these celebrations, and we have all this energy and excitement, but then what? So what I'm going to say is continue to have those discussions, and I want you to challenge your table mates to do something. Don't leave out of here until your table mates have made some type of commitment to do something. Action speaks louder than words.
Beautiful. Senator?
One of the biggest issues, we have a lot of issues that we have to deal with every year. And so one of the biggest issues that I would say that we need your help with is to make us aware of the actual problem. It was today, or whenever I was scheduled for this meeting, that I found out that there was actually 80 homeless students throughout my district. It's a major problem. I've seen a few of them, but I didn't know that there was 80. I saw a few working with the food bank, working with the Rotary and things like that, or just, out in the community that I would learn about these things. So please, make sure you let us know what the problem actually is. And let us know, some successes. Let us know when, somebody has found a stable and respectable home so that we can move on to other students that also need our attention.
Thank you. 30 seconds each, guys. Rep. Powell?
Sure. Telling politicians to be brief. I'll try my best. I'll say very simply, very plainly, keep your foot on our necks. I think it's so, so, so important that consistently that we see advocacy in this space. I believe very deeply, as I'm sure all of us in this room, that housing is critically important to so many issues. You're not going to be able to learn well. You're not going to be able to feed yourself. You're not going to be able to, go to school successfully if you don't have a safe place to lay your head at night. Especially for our youngest amongst us, having stable, secure, dignified housing, as we've been talking about, is the glue to everything else, all your other successful outcomes. I think sometimes, especially in the budget season, as we're about to march into next week, there are lots of things that are important, right? And that's true. But this, I see, is one of the clearest issues that not only we have bipartisan support, but there are very clear answers, right? How do we improve our statistics to make sure that we're mitigating homelessness amongst young people? We're building more homes, We're making sure that more people have supports to stay in those homes. We're creating that connective tissue and glue between all the other insecurities or poor outcomes that we know might result from poor or unstable housing. This is a problem that has very clear solutions, and so I implore you to continue your advocacy, even though, as I'm sure there are so many other things in this world and so many other things in this work that are also equally important, but continue your advocacy on this space, and hopefully together we'll be able to create solutions that we're not just proud of, but solutions that deeply impact people's lives.
All right, I'm going to try 3 things real quickly. First, hug your local social worker, or better yet, give them a raise. Second, I just want to commend the senator and the representative. I don't know if you heard in their comments that their experiences come not just from legislating, but rolling up their sleeves and doing service in their communities. Those are the kinds of people you want to elect. That's thing 2. Thing 3 is this: I believe strongly that when it comes to housing, and particularly homelessness, we need to start at either end of the lifespan and work towards the middle. We're gonna, yeah, thank you. When we invest in making sure that our young people who are housing vulnerable, housing insecure, we're going to help ensure that there's less housing insecurity in the future. And I don't know about y'all, I have an old head in my neighborhood. His name is Chet. He's 80 some odd. He owns his house outright, but he can barely pay the property taxes on Social Security. If he loses that house to a flipper, not only have we lost an existing piece of affordable housing, we've lost somebody who sits out on the porch, looks at the neighborhood, grabs kids by their neck when they're doing the wrong thing, knows their parents, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want you to understand that investments in whole home repair, housing preservation, keeping seniors in their home are not just investments in housing stock, but in the social fabric of the Commonwealth.
Thank you so much, guys. Another round of applause for the panelists. Thank you, guys. And with that, I'm going to welcome AJ back to the stage for some closing remarks and our final call to action. So thank you guys so much for being with us again today, and I hope you enjoyed the breakfast.
So Brian was not just responsible for the panel, he is responsible for everything it took to plan this event. So he planned this event, he hosted a panel, and there was something else that my 51-year-old brain can't remember. Yeah, but again, another round of applause for Brian. Oh! He facilitated our next grant that we're getting ready to roll out. So if Brian can stay up here with us, oh, you have to go get the, Yeah. He's still working. All right, so bear with me, 3 minutes, I promise. Each year at HCEF, we are so proud to actually award a grant. It is called our Homeless Education Network, or HEN, Collaborative Impact Grant. We grant this grant to an agency seeking to develop and expand upon educational projects that meets the needs of students experiencing homelessness as defined in the McKinney-Vento Act. So this year, I am so proud to award our HEN $15,000 Collaborative Impact Grant to the Early Excellence Project. The Early Excellence Project is using this funding to enable the Margaret Washington Literacy Center program to continue serving young learners through literacy-focused, high-impact tutoring, helping to close the opportunity gap and ensure that every child has the tools they need to thrive academically. Erica Grayson, thank you so much for joining us. I'm not going to keep you a moment longer than I need to, okay? So just bear with me. The mayor graciously recognized me at the beginning of this breakfast, but let me tell you, it is not me, it is never me who is doing the work, the boots on the ground, who is meeting with our students, who's ensuring that they are progressing in their education, the people who roll out our continuum of programming model, taking care of students from an education, academic, social, and emotional, all of what a child needs in order to thrive. The 1,100 plus students that we care for every single year is not done by me, but 15 brave individuals who are superheroes in my explanation of who they are. And I would like for everyone to stand up. Yes, I'm asking you to stand up and recognize them. They are absolutely an amazing group of individuals who put their heart, soul, and their grit into everything they do in supporting our students. And we could not do what we're doing without each and every one of them. So we heard Miss Ashby's call to action. It stood out for me. She said, do something. She said, before you leave the table, do something. Hold each other accountable to doing something. I have the something in my hand, right? You can choose between either of these QR codes. The first one is investing in the Collegiate Advocacy Committee. The second one is investing in the work to continue to fight for the state budget to allow more funding to support our students who are experiencing homelessness. Both of these QR codes are easy to navigate. If you need help, my team is here to help you. But do something, as Ms. Ashby said. Again, thank you all for your support today. We look forward to inviting you back in another 2 years. Safe journeys.